High in the Andes Mountains, hidden among the clouds, lies a civilization that vanished as mysteriously as it rose, the Inca Empire. Their towering stone cities, built without mortar yet standing unshaken for centuries, whisper secrets we still struggle to decode. Picture this: vast networks of roads stretching thousands of miles, intricate goldwork lost to time, and a society that mastered the stars yet left no written records behind. How could an empire so advanced collapse so suddenly, leaving behind puzzles that even today's brightest minds can't fully solve? Take Machu Picchu, the crown jewel of the Inca world. Perched on a mountain ridge, its precise stonework defies explanation. How did they carve and transport these massive blocks with such perfection, without the wheel or iron tools? And why was this breathtaking city abandoned, its purpose still debated by archaeologists? The more we uncover, the deeper the mystery grows. From vanished golden treasures to tunnels rumored to hide untold riches, the Incas left behind clues that tantalize but refuse to give up their truths. This isn't just a story of ruins and relics, it's a journey into the heart of one of history's greatest enigmas. Over the next 30 mysteries, we'll explore everything from bizarre astronomical alignments to eerie mummies hidden in sacred caves. You'll hear of temples that hum with strange energy, legends of gods who walked among mortals, and the chilling fate of the last Inca emperor. These aren't just dusty old riddles, they're doorways into a world where engineering marvels meet unexplained phenomena. So settle in, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about the past. The truth is out there, buried in stone and shadow, waiting to be revealed. Deep in the uncharted stretches of the Amazon rainforest, legends speak of a city so dazzling. Its streets were said to be paved with gold. Paititi, the last refuge of the Inca elite fleeing Spanish conquest. For centuries, explorers have risked everything to find it, lured by tales of untold wealth and sacred relics hidden beneath the jungle canopy. Even today, with satellites mapping every inch of the planet, Paititi remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing ghost stories. What makes this lost city so intriguing isn't just the promise of treasure. It's the eerie consistency of the clues. Indigenous oral histories describe a sprawling metropolis tucked between rivers, its temples adorned with golden sun discs. Spanish colonial documents mention Inca rulers escaping to a remote stronghold, carrying their most precious artifacts. And then there's the eerie satellite imagery: anomalous geometric shapes hidden under dense foliage, spotted in Peru's Madre de Dios region. Could these be man-made structures swallowed by time? Yet every expedition seems to end in frustration. Dense vegetation, treacherous terrain, and even modern-day curses. Stories of explorers vanishing or meeting bizarre accidents add layers of mystery. Some researchers believe Paititi was never a physical place at all, but a spiritual concept, a metaphor for paradise. Others point to newly discovered ruins like the stepped pyramids of the Los Piedras area, whispering that we're getting closer. The truth may lie somewhere between myth and reality, a puzzle wrapped in vines and shadow. One thing's certain: until someone uncovers its golden heart, Paititi will keep calling to the brave and the curious, a siren song from the depths of history. Rising above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, the colossal zigzagging walls of Sacsayhuamán grip the mountainside like stone teeth. This architectural marvel, built from boulders weighing up to 150 tons, fits together with such precision that not even a blade of grass can slip between the cracks, all achieved without mortar, wheels, or iron tools. But what's truly baffling isn't just how they built it, but why. Some researchers argue Sacsayhuamán was an impenetrable fortress. Its three-tiered walls, towering nearly 60 feet tall, form a defensive labyrinth that would have been a nightmare for invading forces. Spanish chroniclers wrote how their conquistadors, despite firearms and cavalry, struggled to breach its strategic choke points during battles. Yet others point to the site's sacred springs and underground temples, suggesting it was primarily a spiritual center. The Incas saw the puma as a sacred animal, and from above, Sacsayhuamán's layout mirrors the head of a puma with Cusco forming the body. Was this a giant cosmic symbol carved into the earth? Then there's the astronomy theory. Certain walls align perfectly with solstice sunrises, while massive stone portals frame key constellations. The so-called Throne of the Inca, a carved seat overlooking the complex, may have been used to observe celestial events. Even more puzzling are reports of strange acoustic properties, whispers echoing clearly across vast distances, as if the stones themselves were designed to carry voices. Could this have been a place where priests communed with gods through sound and light? The mystery deepens when you consider the construction timeline. Experts estimate it took over 70 years and 20,000 workers to complete, yet Spanish records claim the site was unfinished when they arrived. If true, what grand vision were the Incas trying to realize before their empire fell? Every theory, fortress, temple, observatory only adds layers to the enigma. Perhaps Sacsayhuamán was all these things at once, a masterpiece as multifaceted as the civilization that built it. One thing's certain, walking through its shadowed corridors today, you can't shake the feeling that these stones still guard secrets we've yet to decipher. The precision of Inca stonework isn't just impressive, it borders on the impossible. Walk through the streets of Cusco or the ruins of Ollantaytambo, and you'll find walls where massive stones interlock like pieces of a three-dimensional puzzle, their edges so perfectly fitted that you can't slide a sheet of paper between them. This wasn't just craftsmanship, it was a stone masonry revolution achieved without iron chisels, metal tools, or even the wheel. How did they do it? One theory suggests the Incas used a technique called ashlar masonry, where stones were painstakingly shaped by hammering them with harder rocks like quartzite. Archaeologists have found simple bronze and stone tools at sites, but these alone couldn't account for the laser-like precision of the cuts. Some researchers propose they used sand and water for polishing, slowly grinding surfaces until they fit flawlessly. Others point to mysterious stone nubs left protruding from unfinished walls, suggesting the Incas might have used these as handles to maneuver blocks into place before shaving them down. But there's another layer to this mystery. At sites like Sacsayhuamán, the stones aren't just tightly fitted. They have subtle, undulating surfaces that follow organic curves rather than rigid straight lines. This technique, called pillow facing, actually makes the walls more earthquake-resistant by allowing the stones to shift slightly without collapsing. Modern engineers still marvel at how these 600-year-old walls have withstood centuries of seismic activity that toppled Spanish colonial buildings right beside them. Then there's the transportation puzzle. Some blocks weigh over 100 tons, yet the Incas moved them across steep mountains without draft animals or wheels. Legends speak of anti-gravity technologies or sonic levitation, claims dismissed by mainstream scholars, but even conventional explanations raise questions. They likely used log rollers, ramps, and manpower, yet trial reconstructions show moving a single massive stone could take hundreds of workers' weeks of effort. How did they achieve this on such a monumental scale? Perhaps most intriguing is the question of why they chose this method. Mortar was known to nearby cultures, yet the Incas deliberately avoided it. Some scholars believe their seamless joints held spiritual meaning, representing the harmony between earth and sky. Others argue it was purely practical, a way to create structures that would endure for millennia. Whatever their reasons, one thing is clear. When you run your hand along these ancient walls today, you're touching a technology that modern science still can't fully replicate. The stones whisper of knowledge lost to time, a testament to a civilization that mastered the earth itself. When Spanish conquistadors stormed into the Inca Empire, they were dazzled by a sight beyond their wildest dreams: temples sheathed in gold, life-sized statues of deities cast in precious metals, and palaces where even the garden plants were sculpted from solid silver. Historical accounts describe how Emperor Atahualpa, captured by the Spanish, offered a ransom enough to fill an entire room with gold 24 feet long, 18 feet wide, stacked to the ceiling. Yet after the treasure was delivered, the conquistadors broke their word, executing Atahualpa and plunging the empire into chaos. But here's the twist: most of that legendary ransom, along with countless other treasures, vanished without a trace. Where did it all go? Some believe the Incas, foreseeing their downfall, hid their most sacred objects in a desperate bid to keep them from Spanish hands. Chroniclers wrote of elite priests and warriors smuggling gold into the jungle, sinking it into remote lakes or sealing it inside mountain caves. Lake Titicaca, the sacred body of water straddling Peru and Bolivia, became the focus of one enduring legend. Locals spoke of a grand ceremony where golden artifacts, including a massive chain meant to symbolize unity, were thrown into its depths as an offering to the gods. Modern expeditions have indeed uncovered small offerings near the lake shores: tiny gold figurines, intricate ceremonial cups, but the motherlode, if it exists, remains hidden beneath miles of icy water. Then there are the whispered stories of modern treasure hunters. In the 1980s, a controversial explorer claimed to find a cave in the Andes filled with gold statues, only for the entrance to mysteriously collapse days later. Satellite scans have detected unusual metallic densities beneath parts of the Amazon, sparking frenzied but fruitless digs. Even today, farmers occasionally stumble upon caches of golden artifacts while plowing fields, fueling speculation that the earth still guards the empire's lost wealth. But perhaps the greatest irony is this: the Spanish obsession with looting Inca gold may have inadvertently preserved it. Many treasures were melted down into ingots for transport, only to sink in shipwrecks during storms. Off the coast of Ecuador, divers recently discovered the Holy Grail of shipwrecks, a Spanish galleon carrying billions in today's currency, much of it Inca gold repurposed into coins and bars. The real treasure wasn't just the metal, but the artistry lost forever in the smelting process. So was the gold hidden, lost, or transformed? The answer might be all three. Every recovered fragment, a sun disk in a museum, a ceremonial knife buried in a tomb, hints at a civilization that understood gold not as currency, but as something sacred. Its disappearance remains one of history's greatest unsolved heists, a trail gone cold across 5 centuries, and somewhere beneath jungle or lake or ocean floor, the ghosts of the Incas may still be laughing. Of all the Inca mysteries, none is more tantalizing than the quipu, a cryptic language woven not in ink but in knots. Imagine a cascade of colored strings dangling from a central cord, each strand tied with intricate clusters of knots at precise intervals. To Spanish invaders, these looked like primitive accounting tools, but modern researchers now believe quipus may hold the untold stories of an entire civilization, a 3-dimensional code we've only begun to crack. At first glance, quipus appear to be simple numerical records. After all, the Incas used them to track taxes, census data, and warehouse inventories across their vast empire. The position and type of not represented numbers in a base 10 system, with different colors signifying categories like corn, llamas, or soldiers. But here's where it gets fascinating. Some quipus defy mathematical patterns entirely. A handful recovered from burials and sacred sites feature unconventional knot sequences, unexpected color combinations, even tiny woven ornaments dangling like punctuation. Could these be narratives, poems, laws, or histories encoded in fiber instead of text? The challenge is monumental. Unlike cracking the Rosetta Stone, where scholars had bilingual inscriptions to compare, quipus offer no direct translation key. Linguists pore over colonial documents for clues, like a Spanish judge's account of Inca witnesses, reading testimonies from knotted cords during trials. Some researchers claim to have identified grammatical structures, with knot clusters acting as verbs or nouns. Others argue certain quipus map to the Inca calendar, their cords aligning with celestial cycles. Then there's the haunting possibility that the most important quipus are gone forever. After the conquest, Spanish priests burned thousands as idolatrous objects, leaving only about 1,000 known examples scattered in museums. Recent breakthroughs, however, spark hope. Advanced imaging reveals microscopic wear patterns suggesting some cords were frequently handled, perhaps by official quipucamayos who memorized their meanings aloud. Scientists are even training AI to detect hidden patterns across surviving specimens, treating each knot like a pixel in a larger message. What if these strings aren't just records but a lost library? A Spanish chronicle tells of an Inca ruler who received a quipus so complex it took an entire year to interpret. If even one such masterwork survives undiscovered, it could rewrite history. Until then, the quipus remains civilization's most enigmatic text, a language without letters, waiting for the right hands to unravel its secrets. Earthquakes have shattered cities across the Andes for millennia, yet when the ground shakes, Inca walls stand unbroken. Their secret lies in architectural details so precise, modern engineers study them as masterclasses in seismic survival. Take their trademark trapezoidal doorways. While European colonizers built rigid rectangular arches that cracked under pressure, the Incas angled their openings inward, creating a stable wedge shape that redistributes shockwaves. Even their windows tilt slightly upward, a subtle touch that prevents stress fractures during tremors. But the real genius is in the walls themselves. Unlike modern concrete slabs that crumble when pushed, Inca masonry breathes. Those iconic interlocking stones with their curved edges, they're actually designed to sway. During quakes, the stones shift and settle back into place like a 3D jigsaw puzzle, a phenomenon engineers call dynamic rocking. Spanish chroniclers witnessed this firsthand. After devastating earthquakes leveled colonial churches in Cusco, the Inca-built foundations beneath them remained intact. Some of these walls have survived quakes measuring over 8 on the Richter scale, outlasting buildings erected centuries later. Was this pure luck or calculated brilliance? The evidence points to deliberate innovation. Archaeologists note that earlier Inca structures lacked these seismic adaptations, meaning the techniques were likely refined through trial and error after observing how different designs weathered tremors. Legends even speak of Inca architects filling clay pots with pebbles to simulate earthquakes, shaking models until they found stable forms. Their most sacred sites, like the Coricancha Sun Temple, feature stones with beveled edges that act like shock absorbers, a detail too consistent to be accidental. Today's engineers are borrowing these ancient tricks. In Peru's earthquake-prone regions, some modern builders replicate trapezoidal shapes and flexible joints inspired by Inca blueprints. Yet mysteries remain. How did they calculate the perfect angles without modern physics? Why do some walls hum faintly during tremors, as if tuned to dissipate vibrational energy? The answers may lie buried in oral traditions lost to time. One thing's certain: when the next big quake hits, these 600-year-old stones will likely outlive us all, silent teachers from a civilization that mastered the art of dancing with the earth. Far to the south of the Inca heartland, etched across the bone-dry plains of Peru's Nazca Desert, lies one of archaeology's most perplexing puzzles: the Nazca Lines. These colossal geoglyphs, some stretching over 900 feet and depicting everything from hummingbirds to geometric labyrinths, predate the Inca Empire by nearly 1,000 years. Yet whispers persist that the Incas, masters of symbolism and celestial alignment, might have inherited or even repurposed these mysterious designs. Could there be a thread connecting these two great civilizations across the centuries? One theory suggests the Incas, during their expansion, encountered the lines and recognized their sacred significance. The Nazca culture vanished long before the Inca rose to power, but their legacy lingered in the landscape. Notably, the Incas built their own network of ceremonial roads, sex radiating from Cusco, mirroring the Nazca line's linear precision. Both systems seem tied to water worship. The Nazca geoglyphs align with underground aquifers, while Inca sects often led to holy springs. Did the Incas interpret these ancient desert drawings as messages from their ancestors, or even as maps to hidden water sources? Then there's the astronomical connection. Many Nazca lines align with solstices or star clusters, a practice the Incas refined in their own temples. The famous astronaut geoglyph, a humanoid figure with raised arms, bears an uncanny resemblance to carvings found in Inca sites depicting their sky-watching priests. Some researchers propose that Inca elites, renowned for absorbing and adapting conquered cultures' knowledge, may have repurposed the lines as pilgrimage sites. Spanish accounts mention Inca processions to desert shrines, though whether these referred to Nazca remains unclear, but skeptics argue the timelines don't match. The Nazca culture faded around 650 AD, while the Inca Empire emerged in the 13th century, a gap wider than the centuries separating us from the Renaissance. Without direct evidence of Inca artifacts at Nazca, the connection relies on circumstantial patterns. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in legend. Inca oral traditions speak of the Viracochas, ancient god-like beings who drew upon the earth. Could these stories be distorted memories of the Nazca people, until someone discovers an Inca quipus describing the lines or unearths a ceremonial object at Nazca bearing the empire's distinctive sun motif? This mystery will hover between fact and folklore. What's undeniable is the shared human impulse to shape the land into something sacred, whether with a 1,000-year-old monkey or a fortress that touches the sky. Perched like a ghostly crown atop the Andes, Machu Picchu's silent stone terraces beg the same haunting question: why would the Incas abandon their architectural masterpiece? Unlike other sites ravaged by Spanish conquest, this mountaintop citadel shows no signs of battle or forced evacuation. The mystery deepens when you consider the care with which residents seem to have left. Precious artifacts removed, doorways sealed, as if expecting to return. One leading theory points to disease. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, they unwittingly unleashed epidemics. Smallpox, measles, typhus, that decimated indigenous populations. Could these plagues have reached Machu Picchu before conquistadors ever set foot there? Skeletons excavated at the site show no mass graves, but some researchers argue elite residents may have fled to avoid contagion, leaving the city to slowly empty. Others note the timing doesn't quite align. Machu Picchu's abandonment seems to have begun decades before European diseases swept through the region. Then there's the Spanish invasion angle. While the citadel itself was never attacked, the empire's collapse destabilized trade routes and labor systems that sustained remote sites. Machu Picchu depended on supplies from distant valleys, corn from the Sacred Valley, salt from maras, all transported along now disrupted roads. Without imperial support, maintaining this sky-high settlement may have become impossible. Yet this explanation feels incomplete. Why leave behind such exquisite architecture intact? The Incas burned other sacred sites to prevent Spanish desecration, but Machu Picchu's structures remain eerily pristine. The most tantalizing theory centers on ritual abandonment. Inca cosmology viewed mountains as living deities, and Machu Picchu's location aligns with celestial events like the winter solstice sunrise. Some archaeologists suggest the site was never intended as a permanent city, but as a ceremonial retreat, a place where rulers communed with gods before deliberately returning it to the earth. Broken ceremonial jars found near the Temple of the Sun hint at a farewell ritual, while skeletal evidence shows the last residents were mostly women, possibly priestesses who performed closing ceremonies. Adding to the intrigue are local Quechua oral traditions. elders speak of a great time of scattering when sacred places were vacated to preserve their spiritual power. Perhaps Machu Picchu wasn't abandoned out of fear, but out of reverence, a whispered agreement between civilization and nature. Until new evidence emerges from the jungle-choked trails below, the truth remains suspended between history and legend, as elusive as the clouds that veil these broken walls. Imagine running an empire spanning thousands of miles without writing a single word. The Incas built the largest pre-Columbian civilization in the Americas, governing 10 million people across rugged mountains and dense jungles, yet left no alphabetic records behind. This paradox has baffled historians for centuries. How did an administration so sophisticated function without written laws, treaties, or chronicles? The answer lies in a revolutionary system of memory, ritual, and voice that turned speech into living archives. At the heart of this system were the quipus, trained specialists who memorized vast troves of information, tax records, genealogies, even epic poems, then encoded them into knotted quipus. These human libraries would recite data on demand, their voices weaving numbers and narratives with equal fluency. Spanish chroniclers witnessed quipus delivering flawless reports on grain stocks or troop movements after weeks of travel, their memories sharper than parchment. Unlike static texts, these oral accounts could adapt, updated with each retelling to reflect new conquests or harvests, making the empire's record-keeping eerily dynamic. But oral tradition went deeper than bureaucracy. The Incas saw speech as sacred, believing words carried the same weight as actions. Official histories weren't merely told but performed through songs at solstice festivals, dramatic reenactments of battles, and ritual dialogues between nobles. When an Inca ruler died, his deeds were preserved in formalized chants called hales, passed down through generations like lyrical textbooks. This wasn't just storytelling. It was a form of constitutional law where precedents set by past rulers guided future decisions through vivid oral case studies. The system's genius lay in its decentralization. While empires like Rome relied on fragile scrolls vulnerable to fire or decay, Inca knowledge existed in thousands of minds simultaneously. Even after Spanish burnings of quipus, oral traditions persisted in remote villages for centuries. Modern linguists working with Quechua elders have uncovered fragments of pre-conquest hymns and land treaties, preserved through sheer repetition, proof that sound can outlast stone. Yet this reliance on orality also created history's greatest game of telephone. Without fixed texts, accounts shifted with each speaker's bias or memory lapse. The Inca's own origin myth exists in 12 contradictory versions, all official. Some scholars argue this fluidity was intentional, a way for rulers to reshape history as needed, erasing rebellions or amplifying divine mandates through strategic retellings. Others see it as democracy in its rawest form, history not dictated by scribes but negotiated by communal voice. The ultimate irony, this unwritten language may have been hiding in plain sight. Recent studies suggest quipus weren't just numeric. Their knots, colors, and spacings might encode syllables, forming a tactile writing system we simply fail to recognize. If true, the Incas didn't lack writing. They invented a language so alien we're still learning to read it. Every frayed chord in a museum case may hold speeches, laws, or poems waiting to speak again, if we can just learn to listen. The Inca didn't just preserve their dead, they kept them at the heart of daily life. Unlike Egyptian mummies hidden away in tombs, these ancestors sat on golden thrones, presided over feasts, and even visited each other's homes. Their mummification techniques were so advanced that 500 years later, some remain so perfectly intact you can still see the individual hairs on their eyelashes. How did they achieve this in the humid Andes without the dry desert air that aided Egyptian embalmers? The process began with a sacred ritual. After death, the body was carefully washed in spring water infused with herbs like munya, a mint-like plant with natural preservative properties. Organs weren't removed as in Egypt instead. The Incas used smoke and freezing temperatures to halt decay. High-altitude caves acted as natural freezers, while smoldering quioa leaves created an antibacterial barrier on the skin. Then came the wrapping, layers of finely woven textiles, each imbued with resins from Amazonian trees, effectively vacuum sealing the body. But the real secret lay in the positioning. The dead were placed in a fetal pose, knees tucked to chest, as if returning to the womb of Pachamama, Mother Earth. This compact shape minimized air exposure, slowing decomposition. These mummies, called malquis, weren't relics, they were active participants in empire. During Quihapac Raymi, the festival of the sun, priests carried them through Cusco's streets in palanquins, offering them chicha corn beer as if they could still drink. They consulted mummies of past rulers on military campaigns, interpreting slight shifts in their posture as divine advice. Spanish chroniclers wrote of Atahualpa's generals debating strategy beside the seated mummy of his father, Huayna Capac, as if the corpse might nod in agreement. Some mummies hold darker secrets. In the 1990s, hikers near Mount Ampoto discovered Juanita, a teenage girl frozen in ice with her dress still brightly colored. Toxicology revealed she'd been drugged with ayahuasca before a ceremonial blow to the head, an honorable Capacocha sacrifice to appease mountain gods. Others, like the Luleloko children found at 22,000 feet, show signs of being fattened for years with elite diets, their corpses so pristine that CT scans detected undigested food in their stomachs. Yet the greatest mystery isn't how they survived, but why some resisted decay while others crumbled. Recent studies show certain mummies were treated with an unknown mineral compound, its formula lost to time. X-rays reveal bizarre anomalies too. A few skulls contain tiny metal plates, possibly ritual inserts to channel ancestral voices. Even today, Quechua elders whisper that the best-preserved mummies weren't just preserved, they were waiting. And if you listen closely in the highland wind, you might hear the rustle of their textiles stirring like breath. At the heart of Machu Picchu, perched on a raised platform with panoramic views of the surrounding peaks, sits the Intihuatana stone, a carved granite pillar that has baffled researchers for generations. Its name, often translated as hitching post of the sun, hints at its celestial purpose, but the true extent of its function remains shrouded in speculation. Unlike typical sundials, this intricately shaped stone doesn't merely mark time. It seems to interact with light and shadow in ways that suggest a deeper, almost sacred connection to the cosmos. On the winter solstice, something extraordinary happens. As the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky, the pillar casts no shadow at all, an effect so precise it can't be accidental. This phenomenon led early archaeologists to label it a solar calendar, a tool for predicting seasonal changes vital to agriculture. But the Intihuatana's design goes beyond practicality. Its four corners align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, while subtle grooves and angles correspond to key astronomical events like the equinoxes. Some researchers argue these features transformed the stone into a three-dimensional map of the heavens, allowing priests to track constellations invisible during daylight. Yet there's another layer to this mystery, the spiritual. Spanish chroniclers wrote that the Incas believed certain stones could tie down the sun during solstices, preventing it from abandoning the earth. The Intihuatana's location at Machu Picchu's highest sacred plaza supports this idea. Visitors often describe an uncanny energy near the stone, a tingling sensation in their hands when hovering just above its surface. While scientists dismiss this as psychological suggestion, local Quechua elders maintain the stone still holds the threads of light their ancestors used to commune with celestial beings. Then there's the enigma of its survival. During the Spanish campaign to destroy Inca religious artifacts, most Intihuatana stones were smashed as pagan idols. The one at Machu Picchu escaped only because the site was abandoned and forgotten, or was it deliberately hidden? Curiously, the stone's top bears a series of small, drilled holes whose purpose remains unknown. Some theorize they once held golden pins to refract sunlight during ceremonies, while others suggest they channeled liquid offerings like chicha or rainwater in elaborate rituals. Perhaps the most compelling theory comes from modern astrophysicists. Detailed measurements reveal the stone's angles match the tilt of Earth's axis during the Inca Empire, effectively making it a permanent replica of our planet's orientation in space. Could this have been a device to teach astronomy, or even a symbolic representation of the Inca world, where earthly and cosmic realms intertwined? The answer may lie in the stones themselves, silent witnesses to a science we're only beginning to decipher. Stand before the Intihuatana at dawn, and you'll understand why the Incas might have believed this wasn't just a tool, but a living bridge between humanity and the divine. While Europe languished in the Dark Ages, Inca healers were performing medical miracles high in the Andes, cutting into living brains with obsidian blades and having patients walk away. Trepanation, the practice of drilling or scraping holes into the skull, wasn't unique to the Incas, but their success rates were unparalleled. Archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of trep and skulls across Peru, some with multiple surgical openings that healed completely. Proof these weren't just brutal experiments, but life-saving procedures refined over generations. The numbers are staggering. Studies of Inca-era skulls show a survival rate exceeding 80%, with bone regrowth indicating patients lived years after surgery. Compare that to 19th-century American Civil War hospitals, where similar operations had 75% mortality rates. How did they achieve such precision without antibiotics, sterile environments, or metal tools? Forensic analysis reveals their secrets. Healers used finely honed volcanic glass blades sharper than modern steel, angled cuts to avoid major blood vessels, and herbal antiseptics like balsam and coca leaves to prevent infection. Some skulls even show evidence of gold plates being inserted to protect the brain, a primitive form of neurosurgery 1500 years ahead of its time. But why drill holes in the first? The Incas likely used trepanation to treat everything from battle wounds to spiritual ailments. Skulls with fractures suggest surgeons relieved pressure from head trauma, while others show no signs of injury, hinting at rituals to release evil spirits causing epilepsy or migraines. The most fascinating cases are those with multiple healed holes, individuals who underwent the procedure repeatedly. Were these early brain surgeons testing theories? Did they believe certain skull points channeled energy? The aftermath might hold the most surprising clue. Excavated remains show post-surgery patients received extraordinary care, special diets, months of convalescence in temple hospitals, even prestige. One noblewoman's mummy from 15th century Cusco bears 5 healed trepanations, her burial finery suggesting she was revered for enduring the knife. This wasn't butchery, it was a sacred art, blending anatomy, spirituality, and compassion in ways Western medicine wouldn't match for centuries. Perhaps the ultimate testament lies in the tools themselves. Unlike European surgeons who reused filthy instruments, Inca healers buried their obsidian blades after each use, a rudimentary understanding of contamination. Their legacy lingers in modern neurosurgery. Today's craniotomies follow nearly identical principles, just with better anesthesia. When you see those skulls in museums riddled with precise holes, you're not looking at primitive superstition. You're witnessing the birth of scientific medicine on a scale the old world couldn't fathom. Beneath the cobbled streets of modern Cusco, whispers echo through a hidden world, a labyrinth of tunnels so vast, locals say you could walk all the way to Machu Picchu underground. Spanish chronicles from the 1500s describe these passageways as roads of the serpent, carved deep into the earth by Inca engineers. Some stretch for miles, their walls lined with perfectly fitted stones identical to those above ground. But despite centuries of searching, no one has ever fully mapped this subterranean network. What secrets lie buried in the dark? One leading theory suggests these tunnels were part of a sacred hydrological system. The Incas revered water as a living force, channeling mountain springs through precision-cut aqueducts. Explorers have discovered sections where tunnels abruptly dip or rise, possibly designed to control water pressure for ceremonial fountains. In 1982, workers renovating a Cusco church stumbled upon a flooded passage leading to a stone chamber filled with gold figurines, all facing what appeared to be an ancient water altar. The artifacts vanished into private collections before archaeologists could study them, leaving behind tantalizing questions. Other tunnels hint at more practical purposes. Beneath the Coricancha Sun Temple, radar scans reveal a honeycomb of chambers aligned with celestial events. These may have served as royal escape routes during sieges, a theory supported by 16th century accounts of Inca nobles vanishing from besieged cities, only to reappear days later in distant valleys. Some passages show evidence of ventilation shafts and staircases carved directly into bedrock, suggesting long-term habitation. Could these have been emergency shelters during catastrophic earthquakes? Yet the most persistent legend surrounds the tunnel system's scale. Quechua oral traditions speak of a Chincana Grande, a colossal underground highway connecting Cusco to Tiwanaku in Bolivia, nearly 300 miles away. Modern attempts to verify this have ended in frustration. In 2016, a robotic probe sent into a tunnel beneath Sacsayhuamán traveled 600 feet before its cameras showed a sheer drop into blackness. Subsequent expeditions found the shaft mysteriously collapsed. Similar attempts near Kenko Temple encountered labyrinthine branches that distorted compass readings, as if the very stone interfered with navigation. The dangers are real. Several explorers have disappeared entirely, like amateur archaeologist Augusto R. Burns in 1881, who claimed to find a golden throne room beneath Cusco before vanishing with his team. Others report sudden gusts of stale air, sounds of distant drums, or equipment failures at precise depths. Geologists argue these phenomena have mundane explanations: underground rivers, gas pockets, or magnetic mineral deposits, but the pattern unsettles even skeptics. Perhaps the tunnels were never meant to be fully discovered. The Incas believed the underworld Aku Pacha was a mirror of our world, accessible only to priests and the dead. Some surviving quipus contain knot sequences that may map subterranean routes, but without deciphering the full code, we're left tracing ghosts in the dark. Walk Cusco's streets today, and you're literally standing on history's biggest blind spot, a buried puzzle begging to be solved, if only the earth would loosen its grip. Beneath the towering walls of Sacsayhuamán, where tourists marvel at precision-cut stones above ground, a far stranger secret may lie hidden underfoot: the legendary Chincana labyrinth. This sprawling underground network, mentioned in Spanish chronicles as early as the 1500s, isn't just another tunnel system. Local legends describe it as a deliberate maze, its twisting corridors designed to disorient and trap intruders while guarding something extraordinary. Some say it hides the lost gold of emperors, others whisper it's a gateway to the Inca underworld, or something even more unsettling. The myths surrounding Chincana read like an ancient thriller. 16th century priest Cristobal de Molina wrote of Inca priests fleeing Spanish conquest through these passages, carrying sacred objects that made the walls hum. Modern explorers report bizarre phenomena: flashlights flickering without cause, compass needles spinning wildly, even echoes that seem to come from the wrong direction. In 1986, a team mapping the known sections encountered a stone door carved with a spiral symbol. By the time they returned with proper equipment, the door had vanished, leaving only smooth rock behind. Was this an elaborate hoax, or could the labyrinth somehow rearrange itself, as some Quechua elders claim? Archaeologists remain divided. Some argue Chincana was a strategic grain storage system, its cool, dry chambers preserving crops for lean years. Excavations have indeed revealed ventilated rooms stacked with ancient maize. but other findings defy explanation, like the 5-fingered handprint embedded in one tunnel wall. Its stone fingers fused seamlessly with the rock as if molded by impossible heat. Then there's the infamous Whispering Gallery, a circular chamber where soft-spoken words amplify into deafening echoes. Acoustic engineers confirm the room's shape creates this effect naturally, but why would the Incas build it? Some researchers believe it was a ritual space where priests conversed with echoes, interpreting distorted voices as messages from ancestors. The most persistent legend, though, involves a golden sun disk said to lie at the labyrinth's heart. Spanish accounts describe it as a concave mirror that could show distant lands when struck by sunlight at certain angles, an alleged Inca surveillance device. In 1972, an amateur explorer named Carlos Pastor claimed to find the disk deep in an uncharted passage, only to emerge days later with severe burns and no memory of the encounter. His journal, recovered later, contained sketches of a room lined with metal plates and a single chilling sentence: "The sun walks here at night." Today, most known entrances to Chincana are sealed by Peruvian authorities, partly for safety, partly to protect whatever might still lie undiscovered. Ground-penetrating radar reveals voids stretching far beyond the mapped areas, some at depths exceeding 300 feet. Whether these corridors hide treasure, advanced technology, or merely the whispers of a clever civilization playing with shadows, one thing's certain: the Incas understood that some secrets aren't meant to be unearthed. Perhaps that's why their greatest labyrinth remains half myth, half warning, daring us to look deeper while reminding us that not all doors should be opened. High above the sacred valley, where mist curls around Machu Picchu's terraces at dawn, a secret hides in plain sight. The entire city might be a mirror of the heavens. Researchers studying aerial photographs noticed something uncanny. The layout of its temples, plazas, and fountains aligns with the brightest stars of the Southern Cross, a constellation sacred to the Incas. But this isn't just symbolic, it's mathematically precise. The Temple of the Three Windows frames the constellation's rising point during the winter solstice, while the Intihuatana stone casts shadows that trace celestial movements like a stone compass. This cosmic choreography repeats across the empire. In Cusco, the heart of the Inca world, the Sec system, 41 radiating lines connecting hundreds of sacred sites maps onto the Milky Way's brightest features. Each Huaca shrine along these lines corresponds to a specific star or planet, creating a terrestrial replica of the night sky. Even more astonishing, the Coricancha Sun Temple's courtyard was once paved with silver, reflecting constellations during ceremonies so priests could walk among the stars. How did they achieve such accuracy without telescopes? The answer lies in generations of naked-eye astronomy. Inca skywatchers used natural landmarks as sightlines, mountain notches to mark equinoxes, glacier melt patterns to predict solstices. Their quipus may have recorded celestial cycles, with knots representing planetary positions. At Lactapata, a site near Machu Picchu, archaeologists found a stone observatory where slit windows align with Venus's 8-year cycle. This wasn't just stargazing, it was a fusion of science and spirituality, where understanding the cosmos meant communing with divine forces. Perhaps the most breathtaking example is at Sacsayhuamán, where zigzagging walls mimic the dark constellations of Inca cosmology, not the stars themselves but the black voids between them. The celestial serpent Machu, a winding dust cloud in the Milky Way, finds its echo in the fortress's undulating ramparts. During the June solstice, shadows transform these walls into a serpentine silhouette that crawls as the sun moves, a stone and light reenactment of celestial myths. Critics argue some alignments could be coincidental, but the patterns are too consistent to dismiss. Over 80% of major Inca sites feature key structures oriented to within 1 degree of significant astronomical events. Even their roads follow celestial logic. The Capacñan highway systems bends align with the December zenith sun, creating natural sundials for travelers. This wasn't random, it was a civilization building its world in conversation with the sky. Modern astronomers confirm the Incas tracked not just obvious phenomena, but subtle cycles like the 18.6-year lunar standstill. At the high-altitude sanctuary of Cerro Honora, petroglyphs depict this rare event with startling accuracy. Some researchers believe certain site alignments served as calendrical locks, ensuring rituals occurred at astronomically potent moments. Others suggest the empire itself was structured cosmically, with Cusco as the pole star and provinces arranged like constellations in an earthly galaxy. What makes this celestial mirroring truly remarkable is its practicality. By encoding astronomy into architecture, the Incas made complex knowledge accessible. Farmers could read planting seasons in a building's shadow. Priests decoded prophecies in temple alignments. In a world without written manuals, the landscape itself became an instruction book for living in harmony with the universe. Stand at Machu Picchu's Sun Gate when the Southern Cross hovers directly above the citadel, and you'll feel it a civilization that didn't just watch the stars, but wove themselves into the fabric of the cosmos. The Incas claim to be children of the sun, but their true origins remain wrapped in clouds as thick as those shrouding their sacred peaks. According to their most cherished creation myth, the god Viracocha rose from the depths of Lake Titicaca, bringing forth the first Inca rulers Manco Capac and Mama Oclo from its icy waters. These divine siblings carried a golden staff and were instructed to plunge it into the earth wherever it sank effortlessly, signaling the site where they should found their kingdom. After wandering northward, the staff finally disappeared into the ground at Cusco, marking the birthplace of an empire. But archaeology tells a more complicated story. Excavations near Lake Titicaca reveal traces of the ancient Tiwanaku culture, a civilization that flourished centuries before the Inca, whose sunken temples and monolithic gates bear striking resemblances to later Inca architecture. Some scholars argue the Incas borrowed, or even appropriated, this older culture's legacy to legitimize their rule. Physical evidence from early Inca settlements shows humble beginnings, simple stone and clay structures in the Cusco Valley dating to the 12th century, suggesting they started as one among many small Andean tribes. The timeline gets murkier when you examine their royal genealogy. Inca oral histories list 13 rulers before Spanish contact, but radiocarbon dating of associated ruins suggests their imperial explosion only began around 1400 AD, barely a century before their downfall. This leaves a puzzling gap. How did a minor chiefdom transform into a continent spanning empire so rapidly? Some researchers propose a climate catastrophe around 1350 AD, droughts that destabilized rival kingdoms, while others point to revolutionary agricultural techniques like terrace farming that allowed unprecedented population growth. Then there's the genetic enigma. DNA studies of modern Quechua-speaking populations, considered descendants of the Inca heartland, show surprising diversity, threads linking them not just to Lake Titicaca but to coastal and Amazonian groups. This aligns with alternative origin myths, like the legend of the Ayar brothers emerging from caves at Pacaratambo, which might reflect ancestral memories of migration from multiple directions. The Incas themselves seemed conflicted. Later emperors commissioned conflicting versions of their history, alternately portraying themselves as foreign conquerors or native liberators. Perhaps the greatest irony lies in the very lake they called their cradle. Recent underwater archaeology at Lake Titicaca uncovered offerings, gold figurines, sacrificed llamas dating to Inca times, but also artifacts from much earlier cultures bearing similar iconography. Was this sacred site already hallowed ground when the Incas arrived, its myths recycled like the stones they repurposed for their temples? The answer may lie in the way all empires construct origin stories, not as literal truth, but as cosmic justification for power. The Incas didn't just emerge from a lake, they forged their beginnings in the crucible of memory, stitching together older traditions until myth and history became indistinguishable. Their true origin wasn't a place, but an idea, one brilliant enough to build an empire upon. Perched high in Peru's sacred valley, the concentric rings of Moray sink into the earth like a colossal stone fingerprint, a sight so bizarre it defies simple explanation. At first glance, these circular terraces resemble an ancient amphitheater, but their true purpose sparks fierce debate among archaeologists. Some argue they were the Inca's most sophisticated agricultural laboratory, a living test bed where crops were pushed to their limits. Others see a sacred stage for rituals honoring the Earth's cycles, while a few tantalizing theories suggest something far more experimental. The agricultural hypothesis seems the most grounded literally. Each of Moray's terraced circles sits at a different elevation, creating microclimates with temperature variations as extreme as 27 degrees Fahrenheit from top to bottom. Soil samples reveal the Incas imported earth from across their empire, mimicking distant growing conditions. Researchers have documented how corn planted on warmer lower levels ripened weeks earlier than the same strain higher up. This precision suggests Moray functioned as a controlled experiment to optimize crop yields, an ancient answer to modern climate adaptation. The site's intricate drainage channels, which prevent waterlogging even during heavy rains, further support this practical purpose. Yet the spiritual argument holds compelling weight. Unlike utilitarian farm terraces, Moray circles align with celestial events. During equinoxes, sunlight strikes the central platform in perfect symmetry, casting shadows that spiral outward like growing vines. Local Quechua elders speak of ceremonies where priests would descend the terraces chanting, symbolizing journeys into the underworld. Spanish chronicles mention a temple at the site dedicated to Pachamama, the earth goddess, where offerings of chicha and coca leaves were buried in the concentric rings. If Moray was purely agricultural, why build it with such geometric perfection, a design far more complex than needed for crop trials? Then there's the acoustic mystery. Stand at the center of the deepest circle, and your voice amplifies unnaturally, bouncing off the curved walls in eerie echoes. Sound engineers have mapped how specific frequencies resonate through the terraces, creating harmonic tones when wind passes through narrow staircases. This acoustic precision mirrors Inca sites like the Whispering Gallery at Chincana, hinting at deliberate sonic engineering. Were the terraces designed to harness sound for rituals, or even, as some fringe theorists propose, to manipulate plant growth through vibrational frequencies? A radical third theory emerges from colonial accounts of Inca plant wizards, who allegedly crossbred species at Moray, creating hybrid crops now lost to time. One Spanish document describes potatoes that grew in concentric rings matching the terrace's shapes, their tubers containing medicinal properties. While no physical evidence confirms this, modern botanists note the Andes house thousands of undocumented potato varieties, many with unique adaptive traits. Could Moray have been a bioengineering hub, its circular design mirroring cellular structures or fractal growth patterns observed in nature? The truth may lie somewhere between science and spirit. Recent LiDAR scans reveal underground channels linking Moray to distant springs, water sources considered sacred by the Incas. Perhaps the site was both laboratory and temple, where empirical observation blended seamlessly with reverence for nature's intelligence. Walk these rings today and you'll feel it. A place where every stone holds dual purpose, where the boundary between experiment and ceremony dissolves into the thin mountain air. Whether testing crops or communing with gods, the Incas built Moray to remind us that understanding the earth requires both hands in the soil and eyes lifted to the sky. The Inca road system wasn't just a feat of engineering. It was a logistical miracle spanning 25,000 miles across some of the most brutal terrain on Earth. From dizzying mountain passes 15,000 feet high to rope bridges swaying over raging rivers, this network connected the empire's farthest corners without relying on wheels, iron tools, or even written communication. What's truly staggering isn't just its scale, but how swiftly it materialized. Within a single century, the Incas constructed highways rivaling Rome's, all while adapting to landscapes that would challenge modern bulldozers. Start with the construction itself. Unlike Roman roads paved with uniform stones, Inca highways embraced flexibility. In coastal deserts, they laid packed earth mixed with seashells to prevent shifting. Through the Andes, workers carved staircases into cliff faces and stabilized slopes with retaining walls that still stand today. The secret, a genius understanding of local materials. They mixed clay with cactus juice to create crack-resistant mortar in dry regions, while highland roads used a layered foundation of gravel and clay to absorb seismic shocks. But the real marvels were the bridges. Chroniclers described fiber cables as thick as a man's thigh woven from iku grass, capable of supporting conquistadors in full armor. Some spans stretched over 150 feet, engineering so reliable that a few remained in use until the 1930s. Then there's the mystery of speed. Traditional estimates suggest building just 1 mile of such road would take 500 workers a year using stone tools. Yet the Incas connected Quito to Santiago, a distance matching New York to Los Angeles, in under 80 years. The answer lies in their organizational wizardry. The empire's mitre labor system drafted thousands of rotating workers, each community contributing crews expert in their local terrain. Prefabrication played a role too. At sites like Huánuco Pampa, archaeologists found standardized stone blocks shaped off-site, suggesting an assembly line approach. Most strikingly, the roads weren't built all at once, but as an organic web, first linking key administrative hubs, then fanning outward like branches. Navigation held its own puzzles. Without maps, couriers relied on tampu way stations spaced a day's walk apart. Each stored quipus knotted records noting distances and supplies, while runners called chasquis relayed messages at a pace rivaling the Pony Express. A fish caught at dawn in the Pacific could reach Cusco's highland markets by dusk, thanks to this human telegraph system, but the road's true brilliance was their dual purpose. While facilitating troop movements and trade, they also served as ceremonial pathways. Certain stretches aligned perfectly with solstice sunrises, their zigzags mirroring sacred lightning bolts. At tunnels like the one near Rumacolca, priests performed rites where sunlight pierced darkness only on equinoxes, turning transit into theater. The system's abrupt decline deepens the intrigue. After the Spanish conquest, many roads were deliberately destroyed to cripple rebellions. Yet even today, satellite imagery reveals ghostly traces, straight lines across deserts where vegetation grows differently over buried pavements, or high-altitude segments preserved by permafrost. Some researchers believe the greatest secret isn't how the roads were built, but how they vanished so completely from collective memory. Descendants of the Chasquis still walk these paths as pilgrimage routes, their footsteps echoing a network that once bound mountains, jungle, and coast into a single, unimaginable whole. To walk an Inca road today is to tread the spine of a lost world, one that moved at the speed of human feet, yet connected an empire faster than any wheel ever could. Among the massive stone blocks of Sacsayhuamán, something even stranger than precision masonry catches the eye: sections of rock with surfaces that appear glazed, as if melted by tremendous heat. These vitrified patches, concentrated near the fortress's highest tiers, show a glassy sheen unlike natural weathering patterns. The phenomenon isn't limited to Peru. Similar melted stone appears in ancient structures from Scotland to India, sparking wild theories about lost technologies. Could the Incas have wielded tools far more advanced than chisels and hammers? Mainstream geologists argue these glossy surfaces result from lightning strikes, a plausible explanation given the site's exposed hilltop location. Experiments show that when lightning hits silicate-rich rock, the intense heat can fuse minerals into a glass-like crust, yet skeptics point out inconsistencies. The vitrification at Sacsayhuamán often appears in sheltered areas under overhangs, unlikely lightning targets. Some patches form precise geometric patterns, like the notorious zigzag wall, where melted streaks follow the stone joints with unnatural regularity. Even stranger, a few vitrified zones emit weak but measurable electromagnetic anomalies, as if the stones retain residual energy. This fuels alternative theories, some bordering on science fiction. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts suggest the Incas used concentrated sunlight, perhaps with giant parabolic mirrors, to soften stone for shaping. Spanish chronicles do mention burning mirrors in Inca temples, though these were likely ceremonial. More controversially, a handful of researchers propose the vitrification resulted from acoustic or vibrational technology, sound waves tuned to specific frequencies that temporarily liquefied rock. Indigenous legends speak of singing stones at Sacsayhuamán, and certain terraces do amplify specific tones when struck. Then there's the mineralogical oddity. X-ray diffraction studies reveal the glassy layers contain rare elements like lechitlerite, typically formed by meteor impacts or nuclear explosions. While these could occur naturally, their concentration in specific areas hints at deliberate manipulation. A team from Peru's University of Engineering recently replicated the effect by applying 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit to local andesite. But how could ancient people achieve such temperatures without modern furnaces? Perhaps the answer lies in a forgotten intermediary. Before the Inca, the Tiwanaku culture reportedly used plant-based acids to soften stone, a technique later lost. Spanish accounts describe Inca priests brewing herbal mixtures that made rocks pliable as clay. Modern experiments with oxalic acid, found in Andean plants like rhubarb, show it can degrade stone surfaces enough to carve with simple tools, though not melt them. Could the Incas have combined chemical treatments with heat, creating a temporary molten state? The most compelling clue might be hiding in plain sight. Near the vitrified zones, archaeologists found small ceramic vessels containing traces of powdered hematite and quartz. When mixed with organic compounds and heated, these minerals can create exothermic reactions hot enough to glaze stone superficially. This wouldn't explain massive melting, but it suggests the Incas were experimenting with mineral alchemy, perhaps attempting to paint their stones with protective coatings. Whether natural anomaly or engineered marvel, these shimmering stones challenge our assumptions. Walk your fingers across their smooth, glassy patches, and you're touching a mystery that even modern science struggles to explain. Maybe the truth isn't about lost lasers or alien tech, but an indigenous innovation so ingenious we've yet to rediscover its secret. Until then, the stones keep their silence, their surfaces catching the light like frozen tears of the sun. Standing in the shadow of Ollantaytambo's massive monoliths, you're face to face with one of history's most arresting enigmas, stones the size of buses, abandoned mid-movement as if the workers simply dropped their tools and walked away. These half-finished giants, some weighing over 50 tons, lie scattered across quarries and transport routes like frozen snapshots of interrupted ambition. What catastrophic event could have made an empire known for its relentless productivity suddenly abandon projects that likely took decades to plan? The clues are etched into the stones themselves. At Rumicolca Quarry, just south of Cusco, archaeologists found partially cut blocks still attached to bedrock, their surfaces pockmarked with the telltale dimples of stone tools suddenly stilled. Even more telling are the transport ramps near Ollantaytambo, where massive monoliths were left halfway up carefully constructed inclines, some still resting on log rollers that petrified over centuries. These aren't just unfinished projects, they're crime scenes frozen in time, hinting at a disruption so severe it overrode even the Incas' legendary discipline. Multiple theories compete to explain this sudden halt. The most straightforward pins the blame on the Spanish conquest. When Francisco Pizarro captured Emperor Atahualpa in 1532, the empire's intricate labor system, the mythic, collapsed almost overnight. Without centralized leadership, armies of stonemasons and engineers may have disbanded to defend their home regions or simply fled the chaos. Yet some abandoned sites show signs of disruption decades before the Spanish arrival. At Sacsayhuamán, for example, certain walls exhibit a rushed decline in craftsmanship, suggesting labor shortages or political instability during the civil war between Atahualpa and his brother Huáscar. But there's another, darker possibility: climate catastrophe. Ice cores from nearby glaciers reveal a period of extreme droughts in the 1400s, coinciding with the reign of Pachacuti, the emperor who launched many of these mega-projects. Tree ring studies show these weren't just dry spells, but decades-long megadroughts that could have crippled agriculture, triggering famines and rebellions. Imagine the scenario: quarries sit empty because workers are too weak from hunger or are conscripted to fight over dwindling resources. The unfinished monoliths might be stone witnesses to an empire buckling under ecological stress long before metal-clad invaders arrived. Then there's the spiritual dimension. Inca cosmology viewed massive stonework as a form of communion with mountain spirits called apus. Some abandoned blocks bear unusual carvings, half-finished serpents or celestial symbols that suggest ritual significance beyond mere construction. At the quarry of Cachicota, a 20-ton monolith dubbed the Tired Stone was abandoned along a processional route with ceremonial cups still lodged in crevices. Could priests have interpreted natural disasters or celestial omens as divine orders to halt work? Spanish accounts describe Inca rulers consulting oracles who sometimes commanded entire projects relocated based on visions. The most haunting evidence comes from the stone's intended destinations. At Ollantaytambo's Temple of the Sun, the foundation awaits 6 monoliths that never arrived. Their matching sockets sit empty, their edges worn smooth by 5 centuries of wind, a ghostly negative space where a masterpiece should be. Modern laser scans reveal these sockets align perfectly with the June solstice sunrise, suggesting the unfinished temple was meant to be a crowning astronomical achievement. The tragedy isn't just the interruption, but the lost potential. What cosmic knowledge might these stones have framed if given the chance? Perhaps the real lesson lies in the interruptions themselves. The Incas' unfinished projects aren't failures, they're time capsules preserving the moment when an empire's ambitions collided with reality. Each abandoned block tells a dual story: the breathtaking scale of what they envisioned, and the humbling forces that ensured some mysteries would remain eternally under construction. Walk these sites today, and you'll feel the lingering tension between human will and circumstance, as palpable as the grooves left by tools that will never strike another blow. When Spanish conquistadors first looted Inca tombs in the 1500s, they dismissed warnings from local guides about the sleeping wrath of the ancestors. Within months, bizarre misfortunes began plaguing the treasure hunters: fatal fevers, mysterious falls, even accounts of men driven mad by dreams of golden figures whispering in tongues they couldn't understand. Centuries later, the pattern persists. Archaeologists, collectors, and even tourists who disturb these sacred sites often meet with unsettling fates, fueling whispers of a curse woven into the very bones of the Andes. Take the infamous case of George Tex Benson, a brash American explorer who in 1929 dynamited a sealed burial cholpa, a stone funerary tower near Lake Titicaca. He emerged with a trove of gold artifacts, including a mummy bundle later found to contain the remains of an Inca child priestess. Within a year, Benson's entire expedition team had perished, 2 in a bizarre avalanche on perfectly stable ground, 3 more from sudden illnesses doctors called unclassifiable. Benson himself reportedly woke one night screaming about burning hands before collapsing dead, his skin covered in blisters resembling finger marks. The artifacts vanished into private collections, only to resurface decades later, each owner suffering strange accidents until the pieces were quietly returned to Peruvian authorities. Modern science offers rational explanations, of course. Many tombs harbor toxic molds like Aspergillus flavus, which thrives on ancient organic materials and can trigger lethal respiratory infections. Others contain trapped pockets of decaying matter releasing hydrogen sulfide, a gas known to cause hallucinations and sudden death at high concentrations. But some incidents defy even these theories. In 1996, a team from Yale University cataloging artifacts from Machu Picchu's cemetery sector reported equipment failures coinciding with the removal of funerary objects. Their ground-penetrating radar registered phantom heat signatures near undisturbed graves, while several members experienced shared nightmares of being pulled underground by skeletal hands. The lead researcher's notes, later published in a fringe archaeology journal, confessed, "The psychological toll suggests either mass hysteria or something older." Local Quechua communities have long insisted these phenomena stem from the Inca concept of Ini, a sacred reciprocity between the living and dead. Disturbing mummies or grave goods, they believe, ruptures this balance, inviting Karasiri, vengeful spirits, to restore it. There's unsettling evidence supporting their claims. Forensic analysis of several cursed artifacts revealed microscopic hematite dust, a mineral the Incas associated with blood magic deliberately sprinkled on burial offerings. More chilling are the accounts from Poco's Andean shamans, who describe sensing hotspots around looted tombs where the earth itself feels angry. Geologists have measured abnormal electromagnetic fluctuations at these locations, though they attribute them to natural mineral deposits. Perhaps the most compelling argument for the curse's reality lies in its selectivity. Not every trespasser suffers, only those who remove objects or show disrespect. In 2011, a German backpacker who pocketed stones from Sacsayhuamán's burial caves broke his leg the next day. When he mailed the rocks back with an apology letter, his inexplicable chronic pain vanished. Contrast this with researchers like Dr. Johann Reinhard, who spent decades respectfully studying high-altitude mummies and reported only goodwill from local communities and zero supernatural incidents. The ultimate irony: some of the worst victims were the Spanish themselves. After melting down sacred gold from the Coricancha temple, Conquistador Juan de Oñate's ship sank in a freak storm off Panama, taking all looted artifacts to the depths. His surviving crew swore they saw golden figures walking on the waves as the vessel went down, a scene eerily paralleling Inca myths about drowned gods reclaiming their treasures. Whether you view these stories as folklore or frightening fact, one truth emerges: the Incas engineered their tombs as carefully as their cities, with protections that transcend time. Touch what isn't yours, and the mountains themselves might just push back. To the Inca, the night sky wasn't just a spectacle, it was a sacred text, a celestial blueprint guiding everything from planting seasons to temple construction. Their astronomers, perched on stone platforms high in the Andes, tracked the movements of stars and planets with a precision that rivals modern observatories. At the heart of this cosmic wisdom stood the Coricancha, Cusco's golden sun temple, where astronomy and architecture merged into something extraordinary. Its walls, once sheathed in gold, aligned so precisely with the June solstice sunrise that sunlight would ignite the entire sanctuary in a blaze of reflected light, signaling the year's turning point to distant mountain outposts. But the Coricancha was more than a solar calendar. Hidden within its trapezoidal niches were shadow-casting devices, likely polished metal plates or obsidian mirrors, that allowed priests to project constellations onto interior walls during daylight. Spanish chroniclers described ceremonies where these projections interacted with golden models of the Milky Way, creating a miniature cosmos for ritual reenactments. The temple's eastern corridor, angled at exactly 23.5 degrees, mirrors Earth's axial tilt, suggesting the Incas understood our planet's wobble long before European astronomers. Their eclipse predictions were even more astonishing. By tracking the 18-year Saros cycle, the repeating pattern of solar and lunar eclipses, Inca skywatchers could anticipate these events with eerie accuracy. At the Highland Observatory of Cusco, archaeologists found a stone pillar notched with 18 grooves, each representing a year in the cycle. During critical intervals, priests would station themselves at remote mountaintop shrines like Cerro Mullo, where the horizon's curvature allowed them to detect the moon's faint penumbral shadow hours before an eclipse began. Legends speak of rulers fasting and donning black robes days in advance, preparing their people for the sun's temporary death. What set Inca astronomy apart was its seamless fusion of science and spirituality. The constellation Orion wasn't just a star pattern, it was a celestial plow, its appearance signaling when to till the soil. The dark patches of the Milky Way became mythical animals, the celestial serpent, the cosmic toad, their movements dictating ceremonial calendars. At sites like Lactopota, stone windows frame Venus at its brightest, while the Pleiades clusters rising mark the potato planting season, a practice still followed by Quechua farmers today. Yet the most tantalizing clues lie in their urban planning. The Sec system, 41 sacred lines radiating from Cusco, doesn't just connect shrines, it mirrors the Andean sky's cardinal divisions. Certain sects align with the rising of Alpha Centauri, while others point to solstice sunsets over specific peaks. Even Machu Picchu's famous Intihuatana stone doubles as an eclipse predictor. Its shadow vanishes entirely during solstices, but during equinoxes it traces a perfect north-south line. Modern astronomers confirm the Incas tracked not just obvious celestial events but subtle phenomena like the moon's 9-year wobble and the precession of the equinoxes. Some researchers believe quipus found near observatories encode these long-term cycles, their knots acting as astronomical logs. Others argue that the empire's sudden expansion under Pachacuti coincided with a rare alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, a celestial omen that may have inspired imperial ambitions. Stand in the Coricancha's ruins today, and you're standing at the intersection of science and myth. The Incas didn't just observe the cosmos, they lived within it, their cities and rituals choreographed to its rhythms. Their greatest insight wasn't technical, it was philosophical, that understanding the heavens wasn't about controlling nature but harmonizing with it. In their world, every stone, every harvest, every king's reign pulsed to the heartbeat of the stars. On the windswept desert peninsula of Paracas along Peru's southern coast, a collection of elongated skulls has ignited one of archaeology's most heated debates. Discovered in the 1920s by Giulio Tello, these bizarre craniums, some nearly 30% longer than typical human skulls, display features that defy easy explanation. While cranial deformation was practiced by ancient cultures worldwide, the Paracas skulls present anomalies that challenge conventional theories. Their volume exceeds normal human capacity, their eye sockets are unusually shallow, and genetic testing on some specimens reveals mitochondrial DNA with mutations unknown in any human population. Could these be the remains of an elite priestly caste who reshaped their heads to mimic gods, or evidence of a lineage unlike anything in our known history? The cultural practice of head binding is well documented among the Paracas people, who used cloth and wooden boards to mold infants' soft skulls into conical shapes as a status symbol. Dozens of cultures from the Huns to the Maya employed similar techniques, but the most extreme Paracas specimens have anatomical quirks that binding alone can't explain. Forensic experts note their cranial sutures, the seams between skull plates, fused differently than artificially deformed skulls, and the foramen magnum, the hole where the spinal cord connects, is positioned farther back, suggesting a distinct posture or even gait. When researchers analyzed hair samples from one skull in 2014, the protein structure showed markers inconsistent with Native American or known Eurasian populations, fueling speculation about lost migrations or isolated evolution. Then there's the genetic enigma. preliminary DNA tests conducted in 2015 on 30 Paracas skulls identified sequences with unusual deletions in genes linked to brain development. The study's lead geneticist, later criticized for sensationalism, claimed some samples showed unknown ancestry, possibly tracing back to the Caucasus or the Near East over 3,000 years ago. Mainstream archaeologists counter that contamination or degraded samples could explain anomalies, noting no intact Paracas DNA has been successfully sequenced. Still, the skull's parietal bones, typically thin in humans, are strangely thickened, a trait more common in hominins like Neanderthals. Could interbreeding between early humans and another species have produced this morphology, preserved in an isolated coastal community? Local lore adds another layer. Paracas legends speak of the Huaracocha, red-haired beings who arrived by sea with advanced knowledge. Spanish chronicles describe Inca emperors keeping elongated skulled mummies in the Coricancha, claiming they were ancestors not of this world. Modern Paracas villagers still refer to certain burial caves as houses of the Star People, though whether this reflects ancient belief or modern myth-making remains unclear. The most compelling argument against extraterrestrial or unknown lineage theories lies in recent biomechanical studies. Computer modeling shows that sustained binding from infancy could theoretically produce even the most extreme Paracas shapes through gradual bone displacement over decades. Yet skeptics can't explain why only some skulls in Paracas necropolises exhibit these traits, often buried with gold artifacts and fine tapestries denoting elite status. Were these individuals considered closer to the divine, their altered heads mimicking revered ancestors or deities? The mystery deepens when you consider parallels elsewhere. In Crimea, similarly elongated skulls dating to the Goth invasions show no artificial deformation, while in Malta, prehistoric skulls display natural cranial thickening like the Paracas specimens. This global pattern suggests either a shared cultural obsession or, more tantalizingly, isolated pockets of an unclassified human variation. Until more rigorous DNA studies emerge, the Paracas skulls will hover between anthropology and speculation, their silent bones cradling secrets that may rewrite chapters of human history or simply remind us how far cultures will go in pursuit of the extraordinary. For the Inca, animals weren't just creatures, they were living bridges between earth and the divine, their forms etched into temples, their spirits woven into the very fabric of empire. Chief among these sacred beings stood three mighty symbols, the condor, the puma, and the serpent, each representing a tier of existence in the Inca cosmos. The condor, lord of the sky, embodied the upper world of gods and ancestors. With wingspans stretching 10 feet, these colossal birds were believed to carry prayers to the sun and souls to the afterlife. At Machu Picchu, stone condors perch eternally over ceremonial plazas, their outstretched wings mirroring the mountain peaks, a reminder that death was not an end but an ascent. Spanish chroniclers documented rituals where live condors were released during solstices, their flight patterns interpreted as celestial messages. Even today, Quechua elders whisper that spotting a condor circling at dawn means the mountains are listening. Then there was the puma, the relentless force of the middle world, the realm of humanity. Unlike the solitary cats we know, Inca pumas symbolized organized power, their sleek forms carved into fortress walls and woven into royal tunics. Sacsayhuamán's zigzagging battlements, when viewed from above, outline a puma's head with Cusco as its body, transforming the capital into a living emblem of strength. Warriors wore puma skin cloaks to channel the animal's ferocity, while emperors kept live pumas in palace courtyards as living metaphors for their rule. But the puma's true spiritual role emerged at night. The Incas believed its eyes were portals to the spirit world. Its nocturnal hunts a cosmic dance, maintaining balance between order and chaos. Beneath them both slithered the serpent, guardian of the underworld and symbol of rebirth. unlike Western traditions that feared snakes, the Incas revered them as keepers of ancient wisdom. Temples like Ollantaytambo feature stone serpents with undulating bodies that align with sunlight during equinoxes, their shadows crawling across walls to mark the passage of seasons. The serpent's ability to shed its skin mirrored the Inca concept of cyclical time endings that birthed new beginnings. In ceremonies, priests drank from serpent-shaped vessels filled with ayahuasca, believing the brew unlocked visions from the subterranean realm of Machu Picchu. The genius of this animal triad lay in its fluidity. A single symbol could shift meaning in different contexts. The condor, usually a solar emblem, became a storm harbinger when seen circling counterclockwise. Puma imagery on a battlefield signaled aggression, but on a water channel, it represented the life-giving force of rivers. Serpents carved near springs were protectors of purity, while those in burial caves transformed into guides for the dead. Archaeological finds reveal how deeply these beliefs ran. A gold bracelet from the Coricancha depicts a puma biting a serpent while a condor swoops above, a miniature cosmos in metal. Mummy bundles often contained animal effigies. One child sacrifice discovered on Mount Ampoto wore a headdress with condor feathers and clutched a stone puma figurine, her body wrapped in a serpent-patterned shroud. These weren't mere decorations, but passports for the soul's journey through all three worlds. Perhaps most striking is how these symbols endure. Modern Peruvian farmers still bury serpent stones in fields for fertility, while protest movements adopt the puma as an emblem of resistance. High in the Andes, where condors ride thermal updrafts, shamans perform rituals unchanged for centuries, their chants echoing a truth the Inca knew well: that humans aren't separate from nature, but threads in its eternal design. To understand their animal worship isn't just to study symbols, but to glimpse a world view where every creature, from the mightiest predator to the humblest snake, held a fragment of the sacred. The fall of the Inca Empire remains one of history's most dramatic collapses, a superpower that ruled over 10 million people, only to crumble in less than 40 years. On the surface, the story seems simple. Spanish conquistadors arrived with guns, germs, and steel, toppling a civilization unprepared for invasion. But dig deeper, and you'll find an empire already unraveling from within, its weaknesses as critical as the swords that finished it. Start with the Civil War. In the 1520s, just as Francisco Pizarro's ships appeared on the horizon, the Inca world was already fractured by a bloody conflict between brothers Atahualpa and Huascar fighting for their father Huayna Capac's throne. This wasn't just sibling rivalry, it was a systemic breakdown of the imperial succession system. The empire's vast size had strained its communication networks, and regional governors seized the chaos to assert independence. Entire provinces withheld tribute, while armies loyal to each brother scorched vital farmlands. When Pizarro captured Atahualpa in 1532, the Inca leadership was too divided to mount a unified resistance. Some factions even allied with the Spanish, seeing them as temporary allies against their rivals. Yet the Spanish arrival alone doesn't explain the speed of collapse. After all, the Aztecs resisted Cortés for years, while the Inca Empire, 3 times larger, fell in a fraction of the time. The difference lay in structure. The Incas ran a hyper-centralized state where all authority flowed from the Sapa Inca. Once Atahualpa was executed, the system had no backup plan. Their legendary bureaucracy, the quipus and Mita labor system, depended on a god-king's commands. Remove that figurehead and the entire machine froze. Then came the silent killer, disease. Smallpox, brought by earlier European contacts, had already ravaged the Andes in the 1520s, killing Huayna Capac and triggering the succession crisis. Measles and typhus followed, wiping out entire villages. Spanish accounts describe roads littered with corpses, their stench carried for miles. Some scholars estimate up to 90% of the population perished within decades, a demographic catastrophe that left terraces untended and armies unmanned. The famed Inca roads, once bustling with chasqui runners, became vectors of death, but perhaps the most fascinating theory blames the empire's own success. The Incas expanded too fast, absorbing dozens of cultures without fully integrating them. Conquered groups like the Chachapoya or Cañari had no loyalty to Cusco. They'd been subjugated only years before the Spanish arrived. When Pizarro offered them revenge, they turned on their oppressors eagerly. Even the quipus system, so effective for governance, couldn't adapt to crisis. Knotted cords recorded troop numbers and grain stores, but couldn't strategize responses to cavalry charges or biological warfare. The final blow was cultural. The Spanish didn't just conquer, they systematically dismantled the Inca worldview. Temples became churches, quipus were burned as pagan objects, and the sect system's sacred lines were paved over with plazas. Without their cosmology, the sun cult, the ancestor veneration, the celestial calendars, the Inca identity fractured. Surviving nobles adopted Spanish names and intermarried, blending traditions until the old ways survived only in whispers. Yet in remote valleys, resistance flickered for decades. Manco Inca's rebel state at Vilcabamba held out until 1572, while messianic movements like Taqi Unqui preached a return to pre-colonial gods. Today's Quechua farmers still sow potatoes by Pleiades' rise as their ancestors did. The empire fell, but its bones never truly left the earth. The real lesson isn't about defeat, it's about fragility. The Incas built a civilization so finely tuned to its environment that removing one piece made the whole structure collapse. Their greatest strength, unity under divine kings, became their fatal flaw when strangers arrived from the sea, carrying weapons no quipu could calculate and plagues no apu could stop. Deep beneath Machu Picchu's iconic terraces, modern technology has peeled back layers of earth and time to reveal a secret the Incas concealed for centuries, hidden chambers potentially untouched since the city's abandonment. In 2020, LIDAR scans conducted by a joint Peruvian-Japanese research team detected a series of anomalous voids near the Temple of the Condor, their geometric shapes too precise to be natural cave formations. These aren't crude tunnels, but carefully constructed rooms, their entrances deliberately sealed with fitted stonework matching the citadel's finest masonry. What could the Incas have buried so meticulously in the heart of their sacred retreat? One chamber's location fuels particular intrigue. Nestled directly beneath the Torreon, a semicircular temple with celestial alignment windows, the space aligns perfectly with the structure's solstice markers. Archaeologists speculate this could be a royal crypt, perhaps holding the mummified remains of Pachacuti, the emperor who commissioned Machu Picchu. Spanish chronicles describe how Inca rulers were preserved and seated in sacred chambers where priests consulted them during crises. If Pachacuti's mummy lies here untouched by looters, it could rewrite our understanding of Machu Picchu's purpose as both palace and mausoleum. But the real enigma is Chamber 3, a long, narrow space beneath the agricultural sector filled with unidentified metallic signatures. Ground-penetrating radar reveals dense clusters of objects with shapes resembling ceremonial knives, tumis, and concave gold plates like those described in Sun Temple rituals. Most tantalizing is a large circular signature near the chamber's center, matching dimensions of a legendary solar disk said to amplify sunlight into beams capable of lighting distant tunnels. The same LIDAR scan detected a previously unknown passage leading from this chamber toward the nearby Urubamba River, suggesting an emergency evacuation route or a secret pilgrimage path. Resistivity surveys add another layer of mystery. One void shows unusual humidity levels despite Machu Picchu's arid climate, hinting at intact hydraulic systems. In 2022, thermal cameras captured fleeting temperature fluctuations in the stone above this chamber, as if air circulates through hidden vents. Local Quechua guides speak of ancestral stories about breathing stones in the citadel, places where the mountain itself exhales. Could this be a preserved botanical laboratory, like Moray's terraces but subterranean? A sealed microenvironment for cultivating sacred plants like the coca used in divination? The biggest hurdle isn't finding these chambers, but accessing them responsibly. Unlike the invasive tunneling of early 20th century explorers, modern archaeologists use endoscopic cameras threaded through mortar gaps. In 2023, one such probe captured a blurry image of what appears to be a stacked stone altar inside Chamber 2. Its surface dusted in a reddish powder later identified as cinnabar, a toxic mercury compound the Incas associated with immortality. Nearby, the camera revealed a peculiar feature, stone channels converging like spokes, possibly designed to funnel liquid offerings into a central drain. This matches colonial accounts of star maps created with mercury and gold dust during solstice rites, suggesting the chamber might be a sealed astronomical workshop. Every new scan deepens the puzzle. Recent muon tomography, a particle imaging technique used on Egyptian pyramids, detected a vertical shaft connecting two chambers, its walls lined with unusual quartz deposits. When researchers shone ultraviolet light down this shaft, the quartz fluoresced, hinting at deliberate placement. The Inca revered quartz as crystallized light, using it in solar observatories. Might this be a physical representation of their belief in celestial pathways? Until these spaces are fully explored, their secrets remain suspended between speculation and science. But one thing is certain: Machu Picchu, already a masterpiece of visible architecture, may have been designed with equal brilliance below ground. The city we've admired for a century could be merely its surface, a sacred skin-covering chambers meant to endure beyond empires, waiting for the moment when light, real or metaphorical, finally reaches them. For the Inca, reality wasn't confined to what the eyes could see. It stretched into realms beyond, accessed through the swirling visions of sacred plants. High in the Andes and deep in the Amazon, shamans brewed potent concoctions from ayahuasca vines and San Pedro cacti, unlocking what they believed were portals to the spirit world. These weren't recreational indulgences, they were sacraments, tools for healing, prophecy, and communion with gods. At sites like Chavín de Huanta, stone carvings depict figures with swirling serpent hair, likely shamans mid-transformation, their faces contorted in ecstatic trance, holding cups of the very brews still used today. The chemistry behind these plants is as fascinating as their rituals. Ayahuasca, a blend of the Banisteriopsis copy vine and Psychotria viridis leaves, contains DMT, a compound our brains produce naturally during dreaming. But here's the twist: ingested alone, DMT is broken down by stomach enzymes. The genius of ayahuasca lies in the vine's harmala alkaloids, which temporarily disable these enzymes, allowing the psychoactive journey to unfold. The Incas, without microscopes or biochemistry, perfected this synergy through centuries of trial and observation. Spanish chroniclers wrote of ceremonies where priests fasted for days, then drank the bitter brew in pitch-black chambers, emerging with detailed prophecies about crop yields or battles, many later verified as accurate. San Pedro cactus, or huachuma, offered a different path. Its mescaline content induces vivid, waking visions lasting up to 12 hours. At the Temple of Pachacamac near Lima, archaeologists found mummies buried with San Pedro bundles, their bones stained green from ritual use. Unlike ayahuasca's introspective darkness, San Pedro ceremonies were often conducted under the sun, aligning with the cactus's vertical growth, symbolizing a bridge between earth and sky. Wall carvings at Tiwanaku show shamans holding San Pedro like torches, their bodies merging with jagged lightning bolts. Modern shamans describe the cactus as a teacher plant. Its slow, luminous visions revealing geometric patterns they claim are blueprints of the universe itself. But these plants weren't just for elites. Healers used them diagnostically, a practice now validated by neuroscience. Ayahuasca's ability to heighten interoception awareness of bodily sensations may have helped shamans detect illnesses before symptoms appeared. In the Sacred Valley, mummies show evidence of successful tumor removals and bone surgeries, suggesting plant-aided diagnostics guided their scalpels. Even childbirth was influenced. Quechua women drank mild infusions to ease labor pains, a precursor to modern epidurals. The darkest side of this practice emerged in Capacocha rituals. Frozen mummies like the Luleloko maiden, found clutching coca leaves, revealed traces of ayahuasca in their systems. These child sacrifices, selected for their purity, were given psychotropics before their final ascent to mountain summits, perhaps to ensure calm acceptance or visions of the afterlife. Their glazed expressions, preserved by ice, haunt us with ethical questions about divinity's price. Today, scientists are catching up to Inca wisdom. fMRI scans show ayahuasca temporarily quiets the brain's default mode network, the ego center, allowing suppressed memories and emotions to surface. This aligns perfectly with indigenous concepts of soul retrieval, where trauma is healed by reintegrating fragmented psyche pieces. Modern clinics in Peru now blend shamanic rituals with psychotherapy, treating addiction and PTSD with methods the Incas pioneered 5 centuries ago. Yet mysteries linger. At Moray's circular terraces, researchers found traces of DMT-resistant plants growing in precise patterns, suggesting the Incas may have cultivated visionary flora like we breed crops. And in the Amazon, isolated tribes still sing Icaro's melodic prayers they claim were taught by the plants themselves during ceremonies. Whether these experiences are biochemical or metaphysical hardly matters to those who have felt their pull. The Incas understood something we're still grasping, that consciousness isn't a fixed state but a spectrum, and sometimes to see truth, you must first dissolve the boundaries of the self. Floating like mirages on the shimmering surface of Lake Titicaca, the Uros Islands defy logic. 42 artificial islets woven entirely from totora reeds, each one a buoyant testament to human ingenuity. These living platforms, where entire communities walk on spongy ground that must be constantly renewed, have endured for centuries, but their origins remain as elusive as the morning mist over the lake. Did the Inca Empire sculpt these aquatic wonders, or were they inheritors of a tradition far older? Archaeological evidence suggests the Uros people predated the Inca by centuries, possibly descending from the ancient Pucara culture that thrived along Titicaca's shores as early as 2500 BC. Pre-Inca artifacts, ceramic fragments with swirling fish motifs, reed anchors carbon dated to 800 AD hint at a long tradition of lake-bound living. The Uros language, Yoruquilla, shares no roots with Quechua, further distancing them from Inca influence. Yet the empire's footprint is undeniable. Inca-engineered terraces on nearby islands like Amantoni mirror the Uros' lattice-like reed construction techniques, suggesting knowledge exchange. The Incas' reverence for Lake Titicaca complicates the narrative. They believed their creator god Viracocha emerged from its depths, and the lake's shallows are littered with ceremonial offerings, gold figurines, spondylus shells, that mirror artifacts found beneath Uros Islands. Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon wrote of Inca rulers sending engineers to improve the floating islands, possibly reinforcing them with sophisticated knotting techniques seen in Inca suspension bridges. Modern Uros elders still demonstrate a distinctive braiding method identical to quipu cords, raising provocative questions about cultural crossover. Functionally, the islands served both cultures differently. For the Uros, they were sanctuaries, movable refuges from aggressive neighbors like the Colla. The Inca master assimilators likely recognized their strategic value. Historical accounts describe messenger kayaks darting between islands, forming an aquatic extension of their famed road system. One colonial document mentions an Uros flotilla ferrying quinoa and dried fish to Inca garrisons during sieges. Today's islands hold clues to this layered history. Beneath the ever-renewed reed surfaces, sonar scans reveal submerged stone anchors resembling those at the Incas' Temple of the Sun on the Island of the Sun. Some islets even float atop ancient terracing patterns visible through the clear waters, ghostly echoes of pre-Inca hydrology. The truth may lie in the reeds themselves. Totora roots grow horizontally, forming natural rafts that can be farmed into islands. Both cultures likely contributed, the Euros as keepers of ancestral techniques, the Inca as systematizers who scaled and fortified what they found. Standing on these undulating surfaces today, you're treading not just on reeds, but on a living palimpsest of Andean survival, where each new layer of Totora whispers another chapter in an unbroken dialogue between land, water, and human resilience. Whether Inca innovation or Euros tradition, these islands remain a marvel that no empire could fully claim, yet both helped shape. At the heart of the Inca Empire flowed an invisible lifeline, water, mastered with such sophistication that their fountains still sing after 5 centuries of neglect. In the highland sanctuary of Tapon, a series of gravity-defying aqueducts cascade down steep terraces, their streams splitting and rejoining in mesmerizing patterns that defy the rugged Andean landscape. The star of this hydraulic ballet is the so-called eternal spring, a water source that has never dried, even during record droughts. How did engineers without formal calculus or modern tools achieve feats that still stump today's hydraulic experts? The secret lies in their reverence for water as a sacred force. Unlike Roman aqueducts designed purely for utility, Inca systems blended function with cosmology. At Tapon, each terrace fountain aligns with solstice sunrises, their arcs of spray refracting sunlight into rainbows during key festivals. The water channels follow precise gradients, often just half a degree incline, calculated using nothing more than knotted cords and stone sighting tools. Archaeologists discovered that the Incas engineered drop structures into their canals, miniature cascades that oxygenated water naturally, preventing stagnation without filters. Even more astonishing, their underground drainage systems included settling basins to purify runoff before it rejoined natural waterways, an early form of environmental protection. But their genius extended beyond ceremonial sites. The agricultural terraces of Moray feature hidden perforated pipes that distributed water evenly across crops, preventing erosion while mimicking natural rainfall. In Cusco, a subterranean network of stone-lined channels still redirects heavy rains away from the city center, a flood prevention system so effective it's been maintained continuously for 600 years. Spanish chroniclers wrote of royal baths where hot and cold springs mixed via adjustable stone valves, creating custom temperatures for therapeutic soaks. The greatest enigma is the sourcing. At Ollantaytambo, engineers tapped springs over 6 miles away, tunneling through solid rock with nothing but bronze chisels. Recent LiDAR scans revealed previously unknown reservoirs high in the Andes, positioned to capture glacial melt before it evaporated. Some channels followed geological faults where groundwater naturally rises, knowledge that would require advanced understanding of seismology. Even more puzzling are accounts from conquistadors describing singing aqueducts that emitted harmonic tones when water flowed at certain speeds, suggesting the Incas manipulated acoustics as part of their water rituals. Modern hydrologists still marvel at their outlier achievements. Computer models show Tapon's main fountain shouldn't work. Its water pressure calculations defy conventional physics until you account for the Incas' secret. They engineered tiny, almost invisible grooves into the stone spouts to alter flow dynamics. Similar microcarvings appear in the famed Shrine of the Waters at Machu Picchu, where a 16-jet fountain complex operates flawlessly without a single pump. Perhaps the most poignant testament to their mastery is how these systems endure. While modern Peruvian cities face chronic water shortages, ancient Inca channels still supply remote villages untouched by time. The secret wasn't just technical, it was philosophical. Where we see H2O, the Incas saw a divine dialogue between mountain glaciers and ocean mist, a cycle they sought to honor rather than conquer. Their engineering wasn't imposed upon nature, but woven into it a lesson written in stone and flowing water, waiting for us to rediscover. Among the wildest theories swirling around Inca ruins, few spark as much debate as the so-called Andean spaceport hypothesis, the idea that sites like Sacsayhuamán were built as landing platforms for ancient astronauts. Proponents point to the fortress's massive, angular stones, its precise alignments, and those mysterious vitrified surfaces as evidence of technologies beyond Inca capability. They argue the zigzagging walls resemble runway markings, while the site's high elevation and flat terraces could serve as ideal landing zones for spacecraft. Some even claim local legends of sky gods descending in fiery chariots are distorted accounts of extraterrestrial visitations, but let separate spectacle from science. While the spaceport theory makes for thrilling storytelling, mainstream archaeologists counter with hard evidence. The vitrification, as mentioned earlier, likely stems from lightning strikes or mineral treatments, not alien energy beams. Sacsayhuamán's runway-like walls actually mirror traditional Andean military architecture. The zigzags create deadly kill zones for defenders, as for the massive stones. Inca engineering prowess is now well documented, from their anti-seismic mortarless joints to the quarrying techniques that allowed them to maneuver 100-ton blocks. The sky god narratives also lose traction when examined closely. The Incas worshipped celestial bodies like the sun and moon, but their deities were abstract forces, not literal astronauts. The Viracocha creation myth describes a bearded figure emerging from Lake Titicaca, a story some fringe theorists twist into an alien encounter. Yet pre-Columbian art consistently depicts Viracocha with symbolic attributes like lightning bolts and solar halos, not spacesuits or advanced machinery. Then there's the timeline problem. Radiocarbon dating places Sacsayhuamán's construction firmly in the 15th century, thousands of years after other alleged ancient astronaut sites like Egypt's pyramids. If extraterrestrials were guiding human civilizations, why would their architectural advice vary so wildly across eras and continents? Even the site's astronomical alignments, while precise, match patterns seen in cultures worldwide who independently studied the stars without extraterrestrial help. But perhaps the theory's biggest flaw is its cultural insensitivity. Reducing Inca achievements to alien assistance dismisses their actual innovation. The same culture that mastered brain surgery without anesthesia, engineered earthquake-proof buildings, and fed millions through terrace farming hardly needed interstellar intervention to stack stones. Their descendants, the Quechua people, rightly view these claims as a backhanded insult, one that overwrites their ancestors' legacy with sci-fi fantasies. That said, the spaceport myth reveals something fascinating about how we engage with ancient mysteries. Sites like Sacsayhuamán are so breathtaking, so seemingly impossible, that they short-circuit our modern assumptions about technological progress. Instead of marveling at human ingenuity, we invent extraterrestrial shortcuts. The truth is far more compelling. The Incas were brilliant observers of their environment who turned limitations into advantages. Their alien technology was nothing more than generations of accumulated knowledge, trial and error, and a profound understanding of stone, stars, and survival. So next time you see those dramatic Sacsayhuamán panoramas, don't picture spaceships, picture thousands of workers singing in unison to synchronize their labor, priests tracking solstices with knotted cords, and engineers laughing as their walls outlasted earthquakes that toppled conquerors' cathedrals. The real mystery isn't whether aliens visited the Andes, but how humans achieved so much with so little, leaving behind monuments that continue to humble and mystify us centuries later. In the end, that's a far richer story than any interstellar fairy tale. From the stonework that defies physics to the quipus that may encode an entire civilization's thoughts, the Inca Empire leaves us with more questions than answers, 30 mysteries that shatter our assumptions about the ancient world. Think about it, an empire without wheels built roads that outlasted empires with iron. A culture without written language recorded complex astronomical data in knots. Surgeons performed successful brain operations centuries before modern medicine, while architects designed cities that danced with earthquakes rather than crumbling before them. Each of these enigmas peels back another layer of what we thought was possible, revealing a people who didn't just adapt to their environment, they rewrote the rules of existence. What makes these mysteries so thrilling isn't just the gaps in our knowledge, but what they imply about human ingenuity. The Incas achieved feats modern engineers struggle to replicate, using nothing more than stone tools and an intimate understanding of their world. Their lost technologies weren't magic, they were the product of centuries of observation, experimentation, and a worldview that saw no separation between science and spirit. When we marvel at how they moved 100-ton stones or predicted solar eclipses, we're not just uncovering ancient secrets, we're rediscovering forgotten ways of thinking. But here's the most humbling truth. For all we've decoded, the Inca Empire still guards its greatest secrets. Was Paititi a real city or a metaphor for paradise? Did their quipus contain poetry, laws, or star charts we'll never read? Why does Sacsayhuamán's stonework still hum during earthquakes? Every answer we find opens 3 new questions, and that's what makes this journey so exhilarating. History isn't a closed book, it's a living conversation, and the Incas are still speaking to us through their ruins, their artifacts, and the legends whispered by their descendants. Now it's your turn. Which of these 30 mysteries fascinates you the most? Do you think the vitrified stones were accidents of nature or evidence of lost science? Could those elongated skulls belong to an unknown lineage? Drop your theories in the comments. I'll be reading every one. And if you're hungry for more enigmas that defy explanation, hit subscribe and join me as we unravel other historical puzzles, from the underwater ruins of Yonaguni to the Nazca Line's celestial maps. The past is far stranger than we've been taught, and together we'll piece together the truths hidden in plain sight. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, the greatest mysteries aren't just about finding answers, they're about learning how much we still have left to discover.